guys, today we've got a review of the AP525 from OSD Audio. I got this one through Outdoor Speaker Depot, and it's a good solid little speaker. It's got a few features that I kind of wish could have been done better. Maybe some things that are not quite as specified, but overall, especially when installed, it sounds good. I think it looks fantastic, and it's really simple to use, really simple to install, and just overall it feels very substantial and like a real quality product. So let's start with a couple things that are not quite to spec. It lists this as a 5-way gold-plated binding post. Now, the ones that I received, I'm not sure if they're maybe a little bit different. I purchased them off the website, so I'm not sure what the deal would be, but these are actually a compression style spring terminal. They don't take large gauge wires very well. You know, if you did need to run like a 14 or a 12 gauge wire to it, you could just at the very end, I guess, take some of the strands out. You're still going to get most of the benefit of the large wire down the length of it, or use the pin type terminals on the end that would just poke through here. But again, not a huge fan of these. I would much rather have something like an actual 5-way binding post, or even just a screw terminal, so that I could put some spades on here. Something like that would be really nice. They can be a little misleading with how the wattage is done on these. So this is a 5.25 inch speaker with a 1-inch silk dome tweeter. They claim that it's got 120 watts of power handling, and then further down the page they say 70 watts of power handling. I think the reason for this is going to be because the 70 watts is probably the RMS, and the 120 watts is going to be peak. So you're not going to be putting out 120 watts with these. Based on the overall size, I'm not necessarily sure I would even do 70, at least with a constant tone. 70 watts music, you're probably fine. But 70 watts with like a test tone, I'm not sure I would quite push them that hard. The cabinet is a fiberglass reinforced plastic, and it feels really solid. It has a nice kind of non-resonance to it. It feels substantially thicker than I believe that it really is, but it does not echo, it does not boom. You know, it's a very solid, nice type. They claim that this speaker is somehow ported. I think it's because it's got kind of 4 holes right through here, which luckily are behind the grill. I'm not sure that it really equates, if you're pushing it hard, to adequate porting, but at the same time, I would not want a huge port on here, especially being a weather-sealed speaker. So if these are in fact the ports, I have not disassembled this. That strikes me as a little strange. The only other thing that I could think here would be that those were just the holes for the screw terminals, like for the screws for the 2 halves holding together, in which case it's not ported, and I don't know why they put that on their website. The bracket is nice. It's a powder-coated steel. I like the curvature of it. I like how they've got the bracket to be, instead of kind of a flat part, they've got this little plastic piece. I kind of wish they could have just flattened out the bracket, but at the same time, this allows you a lot of leeway with things, because you could actually use the holes on this bracket, if you took this off, to attach it to another style of mount, kind of a universal style of mount or something. I do wish that the end caps were a little bit longer. They have a very, very short screw on here. They hold nicely. These have a kind of ridge to them that this locks into. So it's not like fully universal on the mounting. but it does lock in nicely so that it's not just a friction style clamp. It's got these little ridges on there, but the throw on these is not a lot. They have very few threads that it seems like are actually holding into the speaker. So when you turn it, to get it all the way loose to be able to spin the speaker, you're actually at risk of this popping loose. So I could see that being kind of a big headache with install. I just wish that was a touch longer there. That can't be that hard to do, just a little bit longer on the threads. The grill is very, very thin. It is a powder-coated steel, but it is a very very kind of superficial grill. It seems like it works very well for keeping bugs and things out. It's a very tight weave on the holes here, but at the same time, this is not going to be, you don't want to put this somewhere where it's going to be susceptible to damage. This is not something you're going to want kind of on the ground near mowers and weed eaters and things, or people accidentally hitting it with things. This is definitely something you're going to want suspended up on eaves or on a post or something like that. The transformer taps seem to work well. I'm not quite sure about the quality of the transformer for 70 volts on the low end. It did not like very, very low end. I know it says that it's a 45 hertz to 20 kilohertz range. Honestly, it sounded a lot better with an 80 hertz high pass filter on the 70 volt. I think the transformer is a little bit susceptible to saturation, which, given the cost of the speaker, honestly is not that big a deal. These are sold as a pair for a very reasonable price, but still I would kind of rather see the specs given for the transformer when run off a 70 volt as well as the 8 ohm. Because I can see how the extension could get a little bit lower, maybe not quite 45 hertz, but I can see how it could get a lot lower on the 8 ohm line than with the 70 volt, not saturating that transformer. I will say with one of my amplifiers, my 70 volt amps, it did not like having just one speaker on it. It appears to be quite a minimal load on the transformer on the 70 volt. Two of these was fine. One of these started distorting on the high end. It was just, I think it was throwing it into saturation. So that was a little bit of a downside there, but I can't really fault the speaker for that. Just be prepared if you don't have a meter. Depending on what amplifier you have, you're probably going to want multiple of these if you're doing it on a 70 volt line. Mind you, it comes with two, so I would assume that you're probably going to install two anyway, and that's not as big of a deal. Now, with this coming with two, you've got the pair in the box. That's very nice. That can also be a downside. You know, you can't get one for half the price. So if something happens to them, you're going to be buying another pair. So that's a little bit of a downside with an outdoor speaker, is if something happens to one of them, I can't just buy another one. I have to buy another pair. And as far as I know, with warranty, you may be able to get another bracket or something like that if something happens, or one of these end caps, but you cannot just go on OSD and purchase the parts here. You can't just get more end caps or another bracket or something like that, or replacement grill if something were to happen to these. I kind of wish that this door for the transformer and the terminals was done a little bit better. There is no sealing around this, and it is friction fit. They do have two different ways that it can go on, however. You can take this and you can swap it 90 degrees. So you can do this kind of horizontally and it will fit in nicely. But I can see if you take this on an awful lot, it's going to wear down those little tabs, and this could be kind of a problem. So I'm not quite sure how they could design that differently, but I would like to see it designed differently. Even if there was some sort of little, maybe a screw kind of thread door with an O-ring for a tap setting, like with a screwdriver, and then the terminals had one of the little cable gland connectors or something. I think something like that would even be a little bit better. Overall, the sound of these is nice, especially for a 5.25 inch speaker. They sound very reasonable. They get to very reasonable volume levels. I'm not hearing a lot of breakup on them or anything like that. They're not overly bright, but they don't have a lot of low end either. These are very much a mid-range, just standard music background kind of speaker. They're not winning any awards for, you know, shaking your house with bass, but they're not super harsh. So if you don't have a way to EQ the speaker lines, you don't have a way to kind of separate these out if you're using these with a Zone 2 or something like that, I think it's going to work very well. It's going to be pretty similar to your standard smaller indoor like bookshelf speakers. It's not highly resonant, and it's going to match that very well. They throw very, very nicely. The dispersion of them is very nice, but it is not so wide that having these on a standard patio like 15 feet apart that you're going to get a ton of comb filtering on these. So that is nice as well, unless you wanted these to space really far apart and be very omnidirectional. They're not going to be. The dispersion angle on these, I'd say maybe 90 to 100 degrees, like it's off axis. It's not going to be super great, but you know, you're getting what you pay for, and maybe even then some. This is not cheaply made as far as the feeling of it. I've felt far worse outdoor speakers for far more. So overall, I'm really happy with these. And I can say if you're looking for a speaker on a pretty good budget that you want for outdoors, even, you know, some light commercial use, if you've got a bar, restaurant patio, something like that, I can say the AP525 is a fairly good choice, and I think you'll be happy with it, as long as you're not expecting like multi-$100 sound levels and build quality and everything. So while there's a few things I would improve on, overall, you know, it's a great speaker, and I've been very happy with it. If you like this video, guys, we're going to be coming out with more. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.